Eat it!
Drop it!
Hey guys, in this video I'm going to try to show you the steps that I take to make a self bow, but seeing that I've only made one self bow before, I'm not in any kind of position at all to educate you, but if you do learn something, that's great, and I hope you try to make your own self bow sometime. It's a lot of fun. So here it goes.
Alright, I got about a 6-foot piece of hickory that's about 8 inches in diameter. And the first thing I'm going to do is just split it in half using a sledgehammer and some wedges. Alright, now that we've split the log in half, we're going to flip it over and with the wedge hammer down on it like that on the bark side so that we can get 4 sections or staves out of this one log. Next thing I do is I use a hammer just to peel the bark off the whole stave. The next thing I do is I coat the ends of the stave with wood glue, and you just rub it in with your fingers. And the reason why you do this is because it's so the moisture doesn't come out of the ends of the stave, because if the moisture leaves the ends of the stave, it will often cause cracks right here. So if you seal off the ends with glue, it prevents cracks from forming. Alright, this next part's easy. Now that you got both sides glued up and sealed, all you do is just put the stave in a nice dry place and give it about 2 weeks to dry, and then you can start working on it later. The next thing I do is I write up a plan of what I want the bow to look like. 66 inches long, 2 inches wide at the limbs for 20 inches long. This is going to be a pretty wide limb bow. And then I take that and then I draw a rough profile of what the bow should look like on the stave. And when I do this, I make sure that the sides of the limbs go with the grain. As you can see, the grain waves a little bit there. You want the limb to follow that wave, and up here it waves a little bit more again, and it's really important that you follow that grain, and that just makes the limbs stronger. And then what I do next is I tape down a string at the end of one of the limbs, and then I pull it back to the other end at the center of the tip, and I make sure that the middle of the handle, that string, lays right there, and that's just to make sure that when you string the bow up, it won't be lopsided. And it's alright if the string is off to one side mid-limb, but as long as it hits the 2 tips and the handle square in the center, you'll be good. Using a little draw knife, I'll shave off everything that isn't part of the bow's profile. After I've gotten pretty close to the lines with the draw knife, I'm just going to come in with a rasp and clean up the edges. On these traditional bows, you need to find one ring right here that you're going to have going across the whole back of the bow. Because if you have like 3 separate rings on the back of the bow, when you draw it back, one of them is going to lift off and crack. So right now, I'm going to take a pencil and find the ring that I want to use as the back of my bow, and that one's going to be this one right here. There's actually 2, so I can fall back on the second one if I mess the first one up. Alright, this is probably one of the hardest parts about when making a traditional bow. Once you find that one ring that you've chosen to be the back of your bow, using a draw knife, you have to dig down
to that ring and methodically, without digging too deep, make that ring creep all the way down this limb so that that one growth ring of that tree forms the whole back of the bow. It's called chasing a ring. Alright, I've got the back of the bow down to just about one growth ring, and I circled like areas like these knots that are I'm gonna have to come back and do with some files and stuff, and with a pencil I've circled areas where the rings are still high and they're not down to the one growth ring in the back. I've also circled an area where I went too deep. I think I'm gonna back this bow with a few layers of sinew, which should strengthen the bow in case there's any weak spots or breaks in the growth ring. It's still gonna be a little iffy, and I've never backed any bow with sinew before, so it should be pretty interesting. Now I'm gonna get the profile even sharper. I'm gonna fix those spots that I want to work on, and then I'm gonna start thinning out the belly of the bow. Alright, this is a little update on my bow. I've gotten the profile a lot closer. This is about what my final profile is gonna look like. I've gotten the handle section thinned down, and I've taken off a lot of those little high spots that were on the limb surface, so that's all taken care of. And using this little rasp, it's a very coarse rasp, I've shaped this handle. I don't know if you can see that, but it feels pretty good. And also what I've been doing is thinning down the belly of the bow. The object is so that the wood is taken off evenly on either side of the belly of the bow. So I drew this little line down 1 centimeter deep on either side, so that when I finish this up, all these limbs, all the wood on this limb should be pretty parallel. And because if there's like too much wood on one side of the limb, when you start tillering it, the limb will start to twist on you. There's already some twist on these limbs so far. I'm gonna have to try to heat up a limb and use clamps and stuff to twist it straight, but you don't want to do any more twisting than what you already have to take care of. So I'm gonna do the same thinning of the limb on the other side until I can get it floor tillered and bending, but it's too stiff right now. Alright, this is what the limb looks like on the other side before thinning down the belly. Still got the same 1 centimeter deep line going down the whole length of the limb, and on this side too, following that little curve up there. Alright, I thinned down my limbs down to the 1 centimeter line. What I did now is where the widest part of the limb starts, I drew a line from that to where my handle starts, so it's a nice fade out, as they say, and did that on either side. So with a draw knife and a rasp, I'm going to take these little chunks off either side of the handle.